I'll kick it off officially with welcome here. We could chat all day if I let us, so I'll jump right into the leadership part of this. First off, just thanks for coming here. Appreciate you being here. I like to do these sessions essentially as a learning experience for me, but I also think I get to meet all these people. I get to learn from every single one. It's like a real life MBA for us, for me, and our crew to learn from leaders all across Northern Indiana. But I like to dig in for things that others can learn from of who are you? How'd you learn to lead? Who taught you? Who mentored you? What dumb things did you do along the way that you benefited
It's going to be a
from?
long segment. If you talk about dumb things, we're going to be here all day.
I'm a accumulation of 1,000 mistakes, 800 of which I've learned from, and 200 of which I'm still struggling with. But everybody is, and I think you learn far more usually from your missteps, and not even mistakes, but just, it's not a mistake when you try to ride a bike for the first time and you fall over. It's just you tried to ride a bike. A lot of people think in business, oh my gosh, I made a mistake or I had a setback. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Did everybody quit trying to ride a bike the first time they fell off? Did you quit swimming the first time you went under? No. Did you quit running the first time you had a cramp? No. And in business, I think you just got to keep at it, but constantly learn from people who have been there before. So first off, tell me, who's Andy?
Sure. So Andy Kostielney, I realized a number of years ago that I'd never spent more than 17 consecutive days outside of St. Joseph County in my entire life. Now that's kind of cool and kind of not cool all rolled into one, although I think more of it's awesome than it is not. But so the community is very important to me. So I started, we had a small manufacturing facility, so small machine shop. So I graduated from college and the plan was I went to Notre Dame and was going to be a school teacher. So I had a major in history, minor in secondary education. The plan was teach, coach, do all those things. We decided to start our family a little quicker than we had originally anticipated. And I realized teaching probably wasn't going to be a possible option.
Got it. Suddenly you had mouths to feed.
Yes. So then we had a family business. So I went in there. I was there for about 15 years. And then that business started to kind of slow down and decline. So I went to work for a place called Press-Ganey. We do patient satisfaction measurement. Did that for a couple of years. Got to work with healthcare organizations around the country. How do they improve their delivery of care to their patients and their people?
So a whole nother industry, line of work that you were learning in.
Yep. And then I left there, went to the University of Notre Dame, worked at a place called the Robinson Community Learning Center. I was there for almost 20 years. We do a lot of educational programming for primarily youth, but people of all ages, and kind of focused on the area right around Notre Dame's campus. And
thanks for giving me the tour, by the way.
Yes.
Those folks were wonderful. A fantastic place. We'll touch on your role as our ambassador in a minute, but go ahead.
And then kind of in between all that, I got involved in politics. So I spent 4 years on our county council in St. Joe County, 14 years as commissioner. And then I retired from both Notre Dame and Government Life and went to work for DLZ. And we're an engineering architecture firm based out of Columbus, Ohio, but our headquarters in Indiana is South Bend. So I've been there for it'll be 3 years in August.
And outside of that, you're involved, I think it's 17 or 27 or like a million different groups where you're either a board member, an advisor, a contributor, an introducer, a supporter. I see Riley right on your chest. There's not a lot you haven't at some point in time been involved in. Why is that?
So I think the thing that I've always tried to focus on is making our community a better place, because we've got 3 kids and I wanted them to be able to stay if they wanted to. I wanted other people's kids to be able to stay. So everything we did or I did was focused on how do we make our community a better place. That's how I got involved in coaching. I coached for almost 25 years at different levels. How I got involved in politics is how do we make our community a better place for our kids and for future generations.
Who taught you to do that? This is a leadership segment. Where did you first watch leadership happening?
So I think my parents, obviously, like most of us, parents had a big influence in our lives. I was blessed with a lot of great teachers as well. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to go into teaching and coaching, because I had some great teachers and coaches growing up, and just kind of saw through them some of the sacrifices that they made to help make, kids like us better than we were, and just make our community a better place. So a lot of it just kind of firsthand watching and paying attention to people.
And what did your mom do, or what did your dad do that you said, oh, I'm going to model that? Maybe at the time you said that's the dumbest thing in the world, but now you look back and you're like, yeah, I'm probably like this a little bit because of my dad, a little bit because of my mom.
Yep. So my dad always was, his advice was, give you the latitude to do what you want to do. Now, if you do something stupid and I find out about it, then you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So, but I had the ability to kind of try and fail and maybe even fail again, but always had, done so in a very safe space. My mom was the same way.
Yeah.
She, focus was always on education and on just kind of doing the right thing, not being a jerk growing up, and which was kind of natural for me, but at least to be a jerk anyway. But
it's amazing how some of those things, very simply, like don't be a jerk, how much adults could learn from some of the same things our mom taught us, like in the second grade. And one of the things I'm always preaching is, like, if you're at a county council meeting or a school board meeting or a business meeting or wherever you're at, imagine your mom was sitting right next to you, and then you said whatever you said. And if you looked over at your mom, how would she be looking at you? And at least in my sake, and I think for most everybody, your mom would be looking at you like, if you said what's sometimes said,
yep,
your mom would be looking at you like, you are going to hear from me as soon as we get in this car afterwards. And that's not the way we talk.
Yep.
And I don't care if you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, if your mom's still around, she will definitely do that in your ear the next day. And I think, gosh, what if we all just, right before we spoke, we were like, shoot, my mom's sitting right next to me. Okay, I'm not for this position because of X, Y, Z. You don't begin with the sentence, you moron, blah, 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 blah. Because your mom's right there. Like, knock it off.
So I spent a lot of time working with kids, high school age, middle school aged, and what we always tell them before they would interact with someone, imagine your grandmother was sitting right next to you, and speak in the way that you think she would approve of. Now, you don't have to, tell them what you think they want to hear, but you need to do so in a respectful way.
Yeah.
So
if your grandma's right there, like, how would you talk? How would you act? How would you behave? Okay, just probably try to do that most of the time. Who else? When you think of a teacher, how did they impact you? When you think of a coach, how did they impact you? What did you gain from them?
Just opening doors. So my sixth grade teacher introduced me to C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay. So that just kind of, put me on a path of just of that area. My fourth grade teacher introduced me to chess, and that was fantastic. A seventh grade teacher, Mr. McGinnis, kind of taught me about basketball, sports, and then just politics. That's kind of got me involved in those kind of things. But just I had a bunch of high school teachers that just kind of took the time and just introduced me to some things that maybe I wouldn't have found on my own, that just kind of started a passion or started me going down a road.
Did you, at the time when you're in grade school and high school and college, at the time, were you, oh my gosh, this is such great mentorship, I really appreciate it, thank you?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think I did, but probably not.
Maybe in your head you did.
Looking back, I'm sure I thought those things, but no, probably not.
What perspective does time give you when you look back on those?
I think it just allows you to realize the time that so many people put into us growing up, be it our family, our friends, our teachers,
the neighbor.
Yep. I mean, just all those interactions that we kind of take for granted or we don't really acknowledge, but they accumulate. And then you look back and say, wow, that was really impactful. Wow, that was really important.
Yeah. My uncle was not always involved in my life, but those couple of times he was really involved, right. Or my neighbor or my coach or my buddy's dad, whatever it is. As you set out as a young husband and father, and then in your work career, what did you want to model? What did you want them to know about Andy, or what did you want them to think Andy was?
I mean, going back to don't be a jerk. I tried not to be a jerk. whenever you can, but just to
And
treat,
though you got into politics,
yes, but to try and treat people, the golden rule, the way you'd want to be treated, but just treat people fairly, communicate. I mean, to me, the most important thing in life is relationships. So even at a young age, even growing up, even, as begun the more professional side of things, how do you cultivate relationships? Because that's just critical to everything that we do.
whether you're on a team, whether you're in a group project.
Yep. I mean, those things are just important. And then I was blessed as I moved through both politically and my professional career. Most of what I did was based on relationships. So there was a focus on kind of the activities that we did. So that made it very easy to kind of fall into those patterns of just developing those strong relationships with people.
Relationships can be one way, two ways, mostly one way, mostly the other way. What occurs to me just in the time that I've known you is just about everybody in the Michiana area and well beyond, but particularly in that area. But also all of those people know you. And it's not just awareness. Everybody that I've met so far seems to have the same perspective of Andy that I have and that you're talking about. How do you do that? How do you become known for not being a jerk?
Number one, don't be a jerk. I mean, there are different ways you can tell someone
too simple.
something that they don't want to hear, but you can do so in a way that it's respectful and it's just, you're not judging, you're just relaying information. And then also just get to know people. I mean, it's what's so challenging nowadays in society is you can sit back on social media and you can just hammer on people, say whatever you want with no consequence. But if you look someone in the eye and have a conversation with them, it changes your perspective. It changes how you deliver the information that you're going to deliver, which I think is critical.
So maybe behave like your grandma's sitting there, but also behave like you're looking at the person and saying, if I was looking in the person's eye, would I feel comfortable saying this? Or would this be pretty awkward because I know it's too harsh? Okay, well then just don't say it on your keyboard, just like you wouldn't say it if you were sitting right here.
Yeah. And a lot of times, if you truly want the best for someone else, then that's you're a partner. You're trying to work through how can you help them solve a problem that they have versus just point out that they have a problem. And I think that too often we're there to point out a shortcoming versus how do we address that? How do we, prevent that, or how do we fix that?
You're a Republican, last I checked.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have as much success getting along with people when you're in a Democratic city?
Because people are people. For the most part, everyone wants the same thing. Now, maybe it's a little different route getting there, but for the most part, we all want good communities, good schools, good places to raise our families. So how do we focus on those things, focus on the things that we agree on, and then don't place as much importance on the things that maybe we don't agree on?
So Republicans and Democrats can get along.
Yeah. So
you've seen it happen.
I've seen it happen. I've been in the middle of it a few times. One of my favorite stories.
I think a lot of times you've made it happen or you've helped make it happen.
We try to. One of my favorite stories, remember the old cartoon, there's a wolf and a sheepdog. Mm-hmm. Sam the sheepdog, Ralph the wolf, and they show up at work, punch the time clock, the whistle goes off, and they go at it. They spend the entire day trying to get the best of the other one, doing whatever they can to make the other one look bad or to get what they want. Whistle goes off, punch the time clock. They go in the parking lot and they say, hey, Ralph, have a good day. Sam, have a good day. Wish the kids well, whatever it might be. And what I like to think is that maybe sometimes they even went out for a beer afterward. Yeah. Just kind of shared the family, shared what was going on in their lives. And too often, especially in politics, but kind of in society as well, we have all the going at each other, trying to do the best we can to make the other one look bad or to only focus on our goals. But there's not enough of the going out and having a beer afterwards. Yeah. I mean, we continue that just animosity throughout the entire day, throughout everything we do. And that just shouldn't be the way it is.
Yeah, that bleeds into youth sports and schools and school board meetings and local and neighborhood associations. And suddenly you're like, wait, we're supposed to just fight 8-5.
Right.
Like, what happened?
Yeah.
I grew up in and around traders my whole life. So 3,000-4,000 people would pour into the Merck floor or the Board of Trade floor or a zillion other places around the world, and they would all compete like vultures, tooth and nail. The whole reason you are in a trading pit is to make money. You're not solving cancer, curing, disease. You're literally trying to make money. So you got 4,000 people. They go compete with each other tooth and nail all day long. And then what's the most common thing they do? They go out and have a beer. Or they go golf, and you see people that are trying to claw each other to death all day long. And then this guy's the godfather to this guy's kid, and this guy's kid married this guy's son. And you're thinking, oh, but don't you hate each? No, of course we don't. We just play, we just compete, and then we're buddies. How many people in the NFL are friends? 2 quarterbacks from an opposing team. They'll absolutely slaughter each other during a game, but then Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are pretty good friends, actually. I would like our politicians maybe to behave a little bit like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
And I think it used to be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, back, because my father-in-law was a Republican. That's how I got involved in politics in the first place. But he was always moderate. He always got along with everybody. I mean, so that used to be the way it was, but it's simply not the case anymore, which is sad.
But you see quite a few Democrats that are plenty easy to get along with.
No, there were often times where I would be more welcome in the Democratic headquarters than I was in Republican headquarters because of different things that I did.
Yeah.
So I always tried to do what I thought was right, not what I thought what a certain party or a certain group wanted me to do. I did what I thought was the best choice to make.
Some people call themselves moderates, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. There's a number of people who have said, should there be a moderate party, or could I declare myself as moderate? Is that what we need to get back to a little bit, where someone's a little bit more of a centrist than an extremist, or the party just doesn't matter that much or shouldn't matter that much?
I mean, I think on a national scale, it's a little different because then it's more polarized, it's different. But at a local scale, especially, it shouldn't make that much difference, because if you got a paved road, it's not a Democrat or Republican road, it's a road. It needs to get done. I mean, most of the things that need to get done, party doesn't make any difference. And I think most people live in the middle. You've got people on the extremes of both sides in politics and sports and all those things. But typically, most people are kind of in the same space. They just venture off on maybe one idea, one issue more so than another. But we all kind of live in the middle for the most part. But two people aren't comfortable saying that they're in the middle.
Yeah. And I think that's your last point is one of the most important, is we have to just make it okay ourselves to just say, yeah, I'm sort of a moderate. I see things from both perspectives. Oh, really? Yeah, actually, really. And not be shy of it, be confident about it.
Right.
All those things that those mentors and those leaders taught you, what did you then take from that and say, when you and your wife are sitting there, okay, how are we going to raise our kids? How are we going to try to impact them so they can impact our grandkids? What are the things that were preached in your house to your family?
Number one, we wanted to be there, show up. So that was, it didn't even have to be said. So we kind of made the decision, both me, from my career standpoint, I never went after what I thought would make me the most money, give me the most prestige, but I always chose my career path about what would allow me to be there for my family as I grew up. That's why I coached a bunch of stuff. We were there for field days and field trips and all those things. We thought it was important to be there, to show our kids the importance of just showing up and supporting them. So that was one of the things. My wife just did a tremendous job of raising our kids. I was kind of the, look at your dad and whatever he tells you to do the opposite. So that was the role that I played. But we all do something as part of that process. But she did a tremendous job of giving them the resources that they needed. But also, don't be jerks.
Yeah.
Be nice. We are fortunate. In fact, my father-in-law passed away 23 years ago today. So after he passed away, Joy's mom, my wife's mom, moved in with us for about 10 years. And that was one of the greatest gifts that our family ever had, because then our kids, were constantly in the middle of helping, take care of their grandmother, who they adored and who adored them, spoiled them rotten. But it was great just to see them, to help take part in taking care of her and making sure that she, was in a place that she needed to be in.
Yeah. And also there's probably 1,000 little tidbits she dropped here and there of, well, don't do that. You should do this. Don't do this. You should do that. And, that I've seen with my 4 adult kids all grown up, hey, they actually were listening back then. Wow, they really were paying attention, way more than as parents we probably gave them credit for. But they soak all that stuff up.
Yep.
And then what have you seen in your own kids that carries those lessons forward? Where do you see your kids being leaders?
So they do a great job so my two oldest kids, so Tom is my oldest, and Abby is our second oldest. They both are theology teachers at St. Joe High School, a local Catholic high school in South Bend. They're co-chairs of the theology department, and they've got 7 kids between them. So just watching them raise their kids, they're always there. They're always constantly just interacting with them at multiple different levels, which is just amazing to see. And they just, once again, to make sure the importance of being there, showing up, not being jerks. They're much less jerky than I am. So their mother did, like I said, did a great job of raising them.
So you learn those lessons and you absolutely believe them, but your wife helps you deploy them every day.
She makes sure, it all happens. All the magic happens. Yes.
How do you, in your business life, what do you look for? People you're going to hire, people you're going to work with, partners you're going to interact with. What do you see in people and you're like, okay, that makes me want to either have them on my team or have my team work with them?
So I think we're blessed at DLZ. We've got a great staff and just an amazing staff. I mean, they know the technical aspect of either engineering, architecture, whatever that might be. And then on the BD side, because I kind of manage the business development side of things, we've got a lot of people who just they're great at building relationships. We've got one of my coworkers, Tammy. She is just the most unorthodox method of relationships, but she'll have, people spend the night at her house and she'll go help them, dig a ditch someplace or whatever it is. I mean, it's amazing that the way she's able to cultivate a relationship. And that's so important in the work that we do, because we work primarily with governmental entities, municipalities, counties. But those relationships are key, because you're not going to go into someplace, into a mayor or a commissioner's office, and ask them for a road project or a bridge project, and they're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
You may be technically astute, but you've got to have those relationships. So we look for people who are able to build and cultivate those relationships, and then that ends up leading to work.
Yeah. As you think about Michiana, you and I have gotten to know each other over the last year. You've been a tremendous help, just saying, hey, are you aware of these guys? Have you ever met these people? These people are pretty good. And I essentially just came to you and I got introduced through you. I knew of you, and I think we were connected online for quite a long time. I'd seen you at a couple, maybe South Shoreline or some regional type of things. But I essentially came to you and said, hey, we're bringing this good news thing to Michiana. I really want to meet everybody. And doesn't matter whether they're a partner or school or a nonprofit organization. I really just want to get to know everybody. And you've been a great help to us in, are you aware of this guy or this lady, or why don't you come to this thing? What do you see in Michiana that made it attractive for us to come there?
Like a lot
Brag on Michiana for a second.
I mean, like a lot of places, there are just a number of amazing things happening in St. Joe County, in South Bend, Mishawaka, Elkhart, just in the region.
Yeah.
I mean, from an economic development standpoint, we've got one of the largest projects in the state of Indiana's history in the Amazon data center going there, those kind of things. I mean, everyone beats up on their school systems all the time, but we do have a great set of school districts and stuff in the county that are doing great things. We've got young people that are doing amazing things. So, my almost 20 years of the Robinson Center, we got to see, young people go to England and teach a class at the Globe. We got them go to Germany and compete in the Lego competition, the Lego robotics competition. It's just, we've got so many people doing so many amazing things. And the problem is, until people like you, organizations like you come in, too many times folks focus on the negative things, because that's what people think sells newspapers or gets people to tune in to the news or click on things, when they should be focusing on the great things that are happening.
What do you see in what we're doing that helps those people?
I think it gives them a voice. It gives them an avenue. It lets people see, if they want to find out all the great things that are happening, it gives them a place to go. And it also then helps people that are trying to promote the good things that they're doing. It gives them a resource as well to help do those things more effectively and just shed more light on the great things that are happening.
Why do you think it's sometimes almost weird that somebody comes in and says, oh, we're just going to focus on the positive news? Why do you think sometimes people are a little bit like, that's so odd?
Because it is odd. Because
Why?
It doesn't happen. Because no one does that. I mean, it's different in that because there's not a model built on that I'm aware of anyway. Most people, now some people will try to report the news, but invariably it always ends up taking a negative spin. I can just, through my political career, we did a lot of pretty cool things in St. Joe County when I was commissioner. Sometimes those would get reported, but a lot of times it was the stuff that, or people we thought were cool, but then they would, kind of point the negative aspects. It could be 80% positive, 95% positive, but they focus on the 5% that wasn't positive because that's what they thought would sell papers, or that's how they thought they'd get value.
I guess what I wonder is we give our family members, you talked about how gracious your wife is in helping you past whatever challenges you provide her. If she said, hey, as soon as Andy does something stupid, he's out. But you would have lasted like 3 days. Yeah. I would have lasted 2 days. You don't do that. You have forbearance for people. And you say, hey, I like 85% of that person. There's 15% I don't like, but I don't punch them in the face because of the 15%. Right. I'm actually quite happy because there's some people I only like 15%. So you really appreciate the 85% people. How do we help instill that back into the culture? You're in board meetings and community things or civic things. How do the central people sort of step forward and say, hey, that's not the way we talk. Like, let's focus on all the things the school system is doing right.
I think it does happen. I think it happens, because most interactions that at least I have, they're positive. I mean, people aren't just ripping on each other. It's more of the kind of the fringe of whatever the issue might be. If it's politically, you've got, the far left and the far right, or whatever it might be. So you've got some of those folks who chatter the most. But for the most part, I think people truly are positive. They do appreciate all the great things that are happening, and typically will treat people with respect. It's you get in certain situations where that doesn't happen, but it almost makes it look like that's the rule and not the exception.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yep.
Is most of the people I meet are decent people.
Yep.
And I'm not Mr. Pollyannish. I'm as cynical and critical as anybody that I've ever met. But by and large, the vast majority of people you meet are good people. Yep. I'll read something in the news and it'll say, oh, this person's trying to ruin this city or ruin this country or ruin. How many people have you met in politics that you said, you went home and you said, Joy, I met this woman or I met this man today and I think they're trying to ruin South Bend. I think they're trying to ruin Mishawaka. I think they're trying to destroy Elkhart. How many?
Not many.
I mean, it's just, but that presumption sometimes is there, whether it's the Amazon, oh my gosh, the data center must be terrible. I think they're going to kill everyone and there'll be no birds anywhere in Michiana. No, I mean, and again, maybe data centers aren't right for every single situation, right. But you can't just say data center bad.
Right.
They're needed somewhere.
Yep. And
it's just a matter of talking through calmly. So what advice would you give to a leader if I'm a young professionals organization at the South Bend Chamber and I want to know, Andy, how do I learn to lead? I'm only 25. Nobody listens to me. I'm 32, whatever it is. I don't have a voice yet. How do I become you in the future?
I mean, one thing that I was blessed with also is I kind of started at the bottom. So the family business or in politics, I did the grunt work, as my dad would call it. So I did the, in work, I cleaned the toilets and I did the, swept the floors and did that stuff. In politics, I, cooked the sausage or did the door-to-door, whatever it might be. But that kind of got me an understanding of how things worked how organizations work from the ground up. So even if I changed organization, it still had that same basic kind of level. So don't be afraid to do the grunt work. I mean, do the work to understand how your organization operates or how the system or the club or the group or whatever it is, get involved and do the work. Because that's the best way, number one, to begin developing those relationships, which is the next key. I mean, you've got to just be able to have good relationships with everyone that you meet, because you never know how that could help you either within your organization, when you leave that organization, go someplace else, but just really focus on positive relationships with people.
And what advice would you have to somebody thinking about the political aspect of
Don't
things?
do it. Don't. So
I'm not, by the way, just X. I'm on camera. No way. But somebody that has the energy, but says, but can you still do that? Could you still be Andy in politics and actually succeed?
I think you can, but you have to be prepared to be met with adversity, because there are a lot of people who are not going to take you at your word, who are going to, quite frankly, wish that you fail in some cases. So you've got to have a thick skin, but also though hopefully they're getting in it for the right reason. If you're getting into politics because you want to make your community a better place, then by all means do so, because there aren't enough people who approach it for that reason. If you're approaching it because you want to build your self-worth, or you've got an ulterior motive, then hopefully fewer and fewer of those people get engaged in politics, because that's part of the problem that we're having now.
Is one issue people that say, I'm going to get on the school board to make this happen, or I'm going to get on city council because I'm mad about this. Right. No, actually get on city council if you want to serve the city, and don't bring any presumptions to the table. Just actually go to serve the city. Any other advice you want to give? This is about leadership, friendship, relationships, Michiana, any other tidbits you want to share?
So I think one of the things, going back to what do my kids do a great job of with their kids, with our grandkids, is creating memories, because that's, relationships are key, but everything that we do in life ends up turning into a memory. So, and sometimes when all is said and done, that's all we're going to have. So if someone that you cared about is no longer with you, all you've got to hold on to are memories. So create memories as best as you can, hopefully positive ones, but because that's, the most important thing in life is having good relationships and then creating good memories, because that's kind of what it will all boil down to in the end.
Yeah. Did I have a relationship while I was here? And what memories did I create with those people? Because for better or for worse, we all got to go someday. And that's what you get to leave behind. Well, it sounds like your parents, your teachers, your coaches, your family members, your wife, let's give her a lot of attaboys. All those people helped make Andy. Well, I'll just say on behalf of me and all those people, thanks for being Andy. You've definitely been an inspiration to me about how politicians and those in leadership can be real, regular, normal people. And you've also been just a great help to us by saying, hey, this guy seems like a good dude. Let me introduce you to him. And that is invaluable. And there's an awful lot of people that said, oh, yeah, Andy told me you're going to make a call. And yeah, I'll have lunch, or let's get together for coffee. And that's obviously very well earned through being a good dude. And I appreciate that.
I appreciate the great work that you do to point out all the awesome things that are happening in our community.
There's a lot of gentlemen that knew us before we started that had asked at one time, hey, how many stories are you really going to be able to tell if you only focus on the positive stuff? And I saw him a couple months ago at a meeting, and I said, hey, 65,000. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you were wondering how many things we're going to be able to cover if we only cover positive stuff. And I just wanted to update you at 65,000. And we've been unbelievably blessed in Michiana that there's more stories than I ever could have imagined. And they're coming out of the places we know. They're coming out of the schools, the nonprofits, the churches, the youth sports. They're coming out of the woodwork. And luckily, in that region, there's more than we could possibly keep up with.
Right.
Good. Well, thank you again.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
this.